I grew up believing that excellence is not an option, but rather an obligation. In elementary and middle school, my dad would promise to buy me something or treat me to my favorite Chinese restaurant if I brought home all A's. So, yes, I was that student who was upset with a grade lower than a 95 because there was an iPod Touch calling my name and I wasn't going to let a B block my blessing. In high school, I had the same desire for excellence, but a new reward getting into college. I've always wanted to be a doctor, but of course, the main goal was college and the rest would figure itself out. I breezed through high school. I was just one of those students who got it. I didn't have to study hard to do well on a test, I just got it. School came easy to me. Senior year, college decisions began rolling in. While I had a few acceptances, rejections from Williams College and Harvard didn't leave much hope for my decision from Stanford University. As I paced the living room waiting for the Stanford decision to come out at 6 p.m., I prepared for the worst. Dear Oluwaseun, we regret to inform you. Finally, my phone had buzzed with an email from Stanford admission office. I opened the email with one eye, and all I saw was congratulations. I did it. I had gotten into the most selective school in the US. A few months later, I packed my bags, bought a one-way ticket to California, and said, bye-bye, Boston Prep. I started my first quarter at Stanford with the notorious Chem 31A, because that's what all the other pre-meds were doing. Chemical Principles 1. How bad can this be? It couldn't be much harder than my high school chemistry class, right? Little did I know that this was the class that made or broke pre-meds. The class that, according to research, determined if a pre-med of color was going to be another statistic that gave up on the journey to medicine. I approached Chem 31A the same way I approached high school, by showing up for class and doing the problem set. That had gotten me through 4 years of high school, so naturally, I believed it would do the same in college. I barely made it through Chem 31A and B. I seemed to be the only one who never understood what was happening in class. I knew just enough to pass with C's, and this was with the help of a grading curve. I had never seen C's in my life before, and suddenly, they just kept coming. Worst of all, at the time, it seemed like everyone around me had figured it out. Everyone but me seemed to have gotten the pre-med playbook. As my spring quarter of freshman year began, I sat in the organic chemistry lecture hall contemplating my entire existence. And if the molecule is flipped this way, we have Gauss interaction. I couldn't for the life of me understand what the professor was talking about, and I just couldn't afford another C in a pre-med class. So I opened up my laptop, withdrew from the class, and walked out of the lecture hall. As junior year approached, I knew I needed to reevaluate my path to medicine. If I wanted to be a doctor, I needed to get back into pre-med classes and start building my resume. So, with 2 years left at Stanford, I took a leap of faith. I switched my major from psychology to human biology. Not only did I need to complete a whole major in 2 years, but I also had to squeeze in pre-med classes that would not count towards my major. I knew this would be a challenge, but it was a challenge I welcomed. I walked into junior year re-energized, recommitted, believing that if I wanted it badly enough, I could turn things around. You couldn't tell me anything. Your girl was going to slay this pre-med thing. After fall quarter, I returned to an empty home for winter break. I anxiously awaited my grades. The professor seemed to take forever to post the grades. Slowly but surely, the grades came in. By the time the last grade came in, I was looking at a 2.4 for that quarter. I couldn't pull myself away from my glowing screen. I was staring at my grades were staring at me. How was I going to get into medical school with a science GPA below a 3.0? I opened up another tab on Google Chrome and typed, "Can you get into medical school with a low GPA?" Every video I watched, every article, and every blog post I read said medical schools wanted to see good grades. and I mean all A's. Based on what I saw in my transcript, it was evident. I could never get into medical school. My grades told me I wasn't going to be a doctor, and that was a painful pill to swallow. I cried and cried and cried. I had less than 2 years left at Stanford, and there was no way my GPA would get to where it needed to be. After burying myself in my bed for days, I realized crying wasn't going to raise my GPA. I finally accepted the fact that the way I learned in high school did not work in college. I needed to do something different. I needed help. I accepted the fact that seeking help is not a weakness, but rather a tool for achieving success. I set an appointment with the academic skill coach to reevaluate and modify my study habits. Alana, my skill coach, gave me something I needed: confidence. With every check in, she reminded me that I could do it. But I learned that hard work doesn't necessarily yield immediate results. It was frustrating not seeing immediate changes in my academic performance. At this point, doing well wasn't an option. It was, as my parents had taught me from a young age, an obligation. I learned that my GPA is not a measure of my intelligence, but a test of my resilience. If I gave up now, how would I ever get the grades I wanted? So I kept going. I kept going to office hours. I kept working with my study group. I kept doing practice problems, but most importantly, I kept a positive attitude. There were times I would get knocked down, but I got right back up and kept going. Soon, my C's turned into B's, and those B's turned into A's. Senior year was my greatest achievement, not only in terms of grades, but in terms of my personal growth as well. In 2018, I graduated from Stanford feeling on top of the world. I accomplished what once seemed impossible to me. Now, in order to apply to medical school, I still had to take a year-long physics course and the dreaded medical college admission test, the MCAT. Here I was in Silicon Valley, barely making enough to survive, and I owed $1,000 in tuition for my first quarter of my evening physics class. I had no idea how I was going to pay. As the deadline to make payment approached, I texted Mrs. Wright, my alumni counselor from Boston Prep. I knew Boston Prep offered microgrants to help alumni currently in college, but I asked her if Boston Prep had ever offered this type of support for college graduates. She got back in touch with me a few days later to share that she and the board were willing to experiment. I was invited to submit a persistence fund application. I applied immediately and was incredibly grateful to receive the funding needed to complete my last required course. I applied to medical school the following summer full of anxiety and fear. What if my grades were not good enough? What if my story was not good enough? What if I made the wrong choice by applying this cycle? Self-doubt was not a new emotion to me, but the stakes were higher. If I didn't get in this cycle, not only would I be devastated, but I'd need to figure out how I would strengthen my application to apply again. Those thoughts of self-doubt came to ease as God showed me what it means to be blessed and highly favored. Before I knew it, I started getting interviews for schools I never thought would even look at me twice. Decisions were due to begin arriving October 15th. As I got into my car to head to work that morning, I was full of nerves and my mind was racing. I was so anxious that I didn't realize what I was doing until I reversed into my housemate's car. I looked at our damaged cars in disbelief and in tears. This was literally the worst way to start my day. As I sat in my car crying, wondering how I would cover the cost of the damage, my phone vibrating, alerting me to my first acceptance into medical school. Later that day, 2 more acceptances arrived, including one from my top choice university. By the end of October, I had received 6 acceptances into MD granting medical schools. And while I'm still deciding what school is the right fit for me, I'll begin medical school this summer. As a student in high school, I did not appreciate the meaning or the power of Boston Prep's mascot, the Phoenix. After all the obstacles in my journey, I have a better understanding of what it means to be a Phoenix. It means being willing to ask for help. It means leaving work early to attend office hours with my physics professor. It means late nights studying for the MCAT with tired eyes but a committed heart. It means believing that the impossible is possible. It means that though your inner fire may at times dim, you will never, ever allow it to burn out. As I continue through this journey in medicine as a Black woman, I know I will encounter obstacles greater than grades. Obstacles that may shake my confidence or even challenge my commitment to medicine. There will be more tears and moments of defeat to come, but I'll keep going. I'll keep going for that Black girl who wants to be a doctor, so that she knows it has been done and can be done. I'll keep going for my sister, so that she knows if they don't give you a seat at their table, you make your own table and invite others to sit. I'll keep going for my future patients, so that they not only have an excellent clinician, but also an advocate who feels and understands them. I'll keep going because the Lord is my strength. Thank you all for listening to my story. I hope my story inspires you, but also reminds everyone of the important work Boston Prep does for its students and alum. Thank you.